The year was 1964. American troops were fighting in Vietnam, while at home, love-ins and peace marches protested the escalating war. In Hollywood, Screen Gems, a subsidiary of Columbia Pictures, was a leading producer of television programming. The Screen Gems stable of comedies included Gidget and Bewitched. But executives Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider had an idea for a different kind of television show, inspired by the Beatles' wildly successful movie, A Hard Day's Night. The TV series would feature a group of 4 aspiring rock and roll musicians living on their own in a California beach house. Rafelson and Schneider presented their idea to former child star Jackie Cooper, the Screen Gems VP responsible for approving all television projects. Monkees historian Gary Strobel.
It was an extremely viable idea. Whether it was going to work on television, nobody knew. But Jackie was impressed enough, and he allocated $125,000 to do the pilot.
The producers had a green light, but they needed a name for the band, something catchy and hip.
One of them was called The Creeps, but it had a negative connotation. Another one was called The Inevitables. And I think they even toyed around with the idea of the Turtles, but that had already existed.
Someone tossed out the Monkees, and the name stuck. On September 8, 1965, an ad was placed in the Hollywood Reporter. The ad called for folk and roll musicians and singers to audition for a TV series. But there was more to the ad than met the eye. Author Mark Vigo.
It did say, you must come down, meaning you must not be high when you show up for the audition. They asked for Ben Frank's types. Ben Frank's was kind of like a Denny's type place, a hamburger joint on Sunset Strip, where after all the clubs would close on Sunset, all the kids would go hang out and they would be high or drunk.
437 young men auditioned for the chance to be one of the Monkees. Among them was actor and musician Paul Williams.
I have a kind of a double negative connection to Mickey Dolenz. I was up for the role of the circus boy, which Mickey got. And then I was one of the thousands who auditioned to become a monkey. And I didn't get the part, but Mickey did. Actually, I think Davy Jones got the short guy role.
David Thomas Jones was born in Manchester, England on December 30th, 1945. Davy was the youngest of 4 children and the only son of working-class parents Harry and Doris Jones. As a young teen, Davy decided to give acting a try.
Done some radio and TV early on as a 12, 13-year-old back in the late 50s. And I had every opportunity at that particular point of carrying on, but just as all young kids do, I decided to go somewhere else. Being shorter than most, I decided I should take up horse racing.
But Davy's riding career took an unexpected turn.
Some owners came by, and they happened to be theatrical agents. And they said that they thought I was quite animated. So they took me up to London, and I auditioned for the part of the Artful Dodger in Oliver.
In December 1962, after 7 months on stage in London's West End, 16-year-old Davy was asked to reprise the role on Broadway. Goodbye, England. Hello, America. 1 year after his debut on Broadway, Davy earned a Tony Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. During a performance of Oliver on Broadway, Jones was spotted by an executive with Screen Gems.
Ward Sylvester, after the Tony Award nomination, came to see this little guy who was the Artful Dodger, and they actually gave me screen tests and took me to Hollywood.
In 1963, 18-year-old Davy Jones signed a long-term contract with Screen Gems Columbia Pictures. At 20, Davy Jones became the first monkey without having to face the grueling audition process. 1 monkey down, 3 to go. George Michael Dolenz was born on March 8, 1945 in Los Angeles, the oldest of 4 children. Mickey's parents, George and Janelle Dolenz, were actors who met on stage.
My parents were both in the business. My mom stopped, she was a singer and actress, and she stopped when she had children, but my father continued, and that was the family profession.
George Dolenz went on to appear in a variety of movies in the 50s and early 60s, including The Last Time I Saw Paris with Elizabeth Taylor. but it was George's starring role in the 1955 television series The Count of Monte Cristo that brought Dolenz the most recognition. Like father, like son. In 1955, 10-year-old Mickey landed his own television role.
The first series that I got was Circus Boy for NBC when I was 10. My father was simultaneously doing The Count of Monte Cristo. And they changed my name to Mickey Braddock because they thought it would be confusing to him. I don't know, two Dolenzes.
After 3 years, Circus Boy was canceled in 1958. By 1965, 20-year-old Mickey Dolenz had given up on acting. Instead, he was studying architecture at L.A. Trade Technical College and began singing lead in a rock band. Later that year, he was booted from the band and decided to go back to his roots. Mickey auditioned for a number of TV shows, including The Monkees.
It was an unusual audition in that they talked, they schmoozed, but it was different. I remember thinking even at the time, wow, this is a good one. I'd really like to get this.
And he did. Mickey Dolenz was chosen as Monkee number 2. The search continued. Among those to audition was folk musician Peter Tork. Peter Halston Torkelson was born on February 13, 1942 in Washington, D.C. His parents were John and Virginia Torkelson. Peter briefly attended Carleton College in Minnesota, but music, not academics, was clearly what turned him on. In 1963, 21-year-old Tork went to Greenwich Village, a hip New York City enclave of artists and offbeat characters. There, he met fellow musician Stephen Stills, who later became famous as a member of Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
One day I was just running around, and somebody said, hey, there's a new kid in town who looks just like you. Oh, yeah? It took me 3 days to meet him. But I knew who he was as soon as I saw him. I said, oh, you're the kid that looks like me. He said, oh, you're the kid I'm supposed to look like.
In 1965, after 2 years playing banjo and guitar in Greenwich Village clubs, Tork headed west to Los Angeles. A handful of other village musicians, including Tork's friend Stephen Stills, were already there. Ironically, Stills auditioned for a role on the Monkees, but was passed over.
He'd met this guy who was doing a TV takeoff on Hard Day's Night, and I should go try out for it, and I went, yeah. And I hung up on him and didn't think a second thought about it, and he called me back and said, no, you really got to try out for this thing. Oh, all right. We were invited into one or another of the producers' offices, and he just said no or maybe. And if it was maybe, then you went to the other producer's office. I got called into Bert Schneider's office first, and he had his feet up on his desk, so I put my feet up on his desk. He offered me a cigarette. I said, I don't smoke those. And he went, well, you know, we can't have any of that around here. I said, well, okay. I guess he thought I was cheeky enough to send me on.
23-year-old Peter Tork landed the role. 3 of the Monkees were now on board. Rounding out the cast of America's version of the Fab Four was Robert Michael Nesmith. Nesmith was born in Houston, Texas on December 30th, 1942, the only child of Warren and Betty Nesmith. But the family unit soon crumbled. Mike's parents divorced when he was very young. Author Randy Massengill.
He and his mother moved to Dallas, and he was just very lonely most of the time as his mom was trying to find work and make money so they could survive.
In the late 50s, Nesmith attended Thomas Jefferson High School in Dallas. He was a rebellious student and always in hot water.
He would walk out of classes. He would do anything to get suspended.
To make ends meet, Mike's mother, Betty Nesmith, worked as an executive secretary at Texas Bank and Trust. Electric typewriters were new on the market, and Betty found that making corrections was cumbersome and inefficient.
She went to Michael's chemistry teacher, and she worked on a little paint, thin paint to hide typewriter errors.
In 1958, Betty's product caught on with secretaries across the country, but several years would pass before her invention would be sold as liquid paper, making Betty a millionaire. Betty's only son, meanwhile, enrolled in San Antonio College.
He wanted to carve out a career in music, and he would perform at San Antonio College, and that's where he met Phyllis.
Phyllis was Phyllis Barber. The casual meeting turned to romance, and on June 27, 1964, 17-year-old Phyllis married 21-year-old Michael Nesmith. Phyllis was not only young, she was pregnant, and she was about to hit the road. 4 days after the ceremony, the couple drove to Los Angeles. On January 31st, 1965, Mike and Phyllis welcomed their first child, Christian Duval Nesmith. Later that same year, Mike recorded 2 singles on the Colpix label under the name Michael Blessing. Then in September 1965, Mike auditioned for the Monkees.
He had this devil-may-care attitude that they really appreciated that, and they liked that. They thought that that would be something that the audiences would remember. And also he was wearing a wool hat. They were like, yeah, they'll remember him by the hat.
Nesmith got the role. The Monkees were complete, and teenagers were about to go ape over the Monkees. Coming up,
Last Train to Clarksville came out a month before the TV show was broadcast, and it was already going up the charts.
and later.
You know, everybody said the Monkees didn't play their own music. Both.
They were super cool.
How many guys out there wouldn't like to be Batman?
In the swinging 60s, this dynamic duo ruled the tube.
Bang, it just hit like a rocket.
And for a couple of guys in tights, they got a lot of attention.
I didn't understand the volume of conquests that can be achieved until I met Adam.
But the very thing that made this hero super killed his career.
I was getting buried in that costume.
It's the story you haven't heard. Batman Unmasked, Adam West, tomorrow at 9 on the E! True Hollywood Story.
Someone is stealing the world's most valuable treasures.
You can take $100 million off the wall and waltz right out the front door.
But nobody can catch him.
This man disappears, it'll be 10 years before he surfaces again.
Because nobody believes it is him.
Do we know each other?
Not yet.
This Friday.
He did it.
Him? He's a finance geek.
Get ready for edge-of-the-seat suspense that everyone's talking about.
Where is he right now?
Can't imagine someone getting away with a thing like this.
The Thomas Crown Affair, rated R, starts Friday.
Mornings, well, that's my time to be dad. By the time I get home at night, my kids are asleep. And breakfast, hey, I can do that on my way out the door. The hard part, though, well, the hard part's getting that far.
Buy yourself some time with Kellogg's Nutri-Grain bars. Good food to go.
Let me out, come on.
Okay, bye-bye.
Maybe a little further this time.
Okay, that's good. Go to the right.
That's good.
Oh, wait, something.
Oh, Grandma, you did it again. Move with everybody else.
A new way to look at everything on health.
New on video, Disney presents Madeline, Lost in Paris, her first animated movie.
The book sort of came to life.
Merci.
Madeline is brave, and they have a real adventure.
Here, take my hand.
She was adorable. I like her as a role model for my children.
Friends forever.
And it talked about family.
I am proud of a family.
Families come in all shapes and sizes.
My little one.
I want to share that kind of story with my daughter. I know they'll definitely add this one to their collection.
Summer. Time to get busy with Red Lobster's 30 shrimp dinner for $9.99. 2 choices, 30 shrimp, $9.99. Escape to Red Lobster.
It's the same in the automotive world as it is in the world of fashion. There are lots of models, but very few supermodels. Presenting the stylish luxury and race-inspired performance of the 1999 CL from Acura.
This portion of E! is brought to you by Acura, where luxury and performance come together like never before.
Hi, I'm Diana Ross, and you're watching E! Entertainment Television. Ta-da!
Sunday Los Angeles Times.
Sunday's our day. I make the coffee. We don't go anywhere.
Except to the front door to get the Los Angeles Times.
On Sundays, I don't want to go out to pick up the paper. I want it delivered. Some Sundays, calendar is the only section I read, and it's still worth having it delivered.
Now you can have the Sunday Los Angeles Times delivered right to your home at a price you'll love. Only $1 a week. That's 50% off. 12 free Sundays for the world-class newspaper in Southern California. Don't miss out on this special offer of home delivery. Call now.
Building financial security for your family requires balance, experience, and trust. At American Benefit Mortgage, we help homeowners get the money they need fast. Borrow up to 125% of your home's value. Consolidate your high-interest debts into one lower monthly payment. Call now at 1-800-560-3090 or simply apply online at AmericanBenefit.net. Your equity working for you.
In 1965, 4 upbeat young men in their early 20s were chosen from hundreds of hopeful musicians and actors to be part of a unique television series about a rock and roll band called the Monkees. Producers believed that Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, and Mike Nesmith had all the right stuff to make a big splash with the teen crowd. But the producers had no idea just how big was going to be. By October of 1965, the stage was set for the launch of the Monkees. 2 cast members were actors, 2 were musicians. A perfect combination, or so it seemed.
I was more of a musician than an actor. Mike was more of a musician than an actor. Davy and Mickey were more actors than musicians, but we were all actors and musicians both. We couldn't have gotten that if we hadn't all been actors to start with, and we couldn't have done it if we hadn't all been musicians.
The pilot episode was filmed in November 1965. Producers were confident the show would test well in front of a live audience. They were wrong. Casting director Eddie Foy III.
In the pilot itself, it was just, what in the name of God are we looking at? And I mean, it wasn't any of the Beatles stuff. I'd never seen anything like this before. And it didn't make me laugh, and I don't think it made a lot of the executives laugh.
The executives weren't laughing, and they weren't happy. The producers were issued an ultimatum. Monkees historian Gary Strobel.
They had like 72 hours to have one more chance at trying to be approved. And they recut it and put the screen tests of 2 of the guys, Michael Nesmith and David Jones, at the beginning. And then it had one of the highest ratings.
The quirky combination of comedy and musical numbers was clearly a hit. No one seemed to care that the Monkees were a make-believe band in a make-believe world. Author Mark Bigo.
The look of the show, the colors, the clothes, and the weird musical numbers that were interspersed all had something to do with the appeal.
In January 1966, NBC ordered 26 episodes of the Monkees to begin airing that fall. 4 months later, in May 1966, the series went into full-scale production at Screen Gems Columbia Studios in Hollywood. But there were problems right from the outset. Studio musicians were hired to perform the music for the series. However, Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, and Mike Nesmith were only allowed to sing the songs.
I walked in, they said, we're having a recording session tonight, so I brought my guitar, and they played me the track. This is the track. I went, what? Oh, this is the track. I mean, Mickey sang the thing, and well, listen, right over here, I could write a little melodic thing that worked against it. It would be really good. No, Peter, this is the record. It really was like, what? Go away. We invited you here as a courtesy.
But I suspect that the producers and the record company didn't really give it, to be quite blunt. Yeah, let them play and let them have, but we're going to be doing this other thing over here with these writers, with these well-known producers. Some of the stuff they'd recorded, the tracks they'd recorded before they even hired us. They had stuff already done because they needed to have songs in the pilot.
The plan was straightforward. Every episode of the TV show would include songs that were written by a group of professional songwriters and performed by studio musicians. 2 promising songwriters under contract to Screen Gems were Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart.
We went home and prepared the theme song, of course. Here we come.
Tommy and I had been led to believe by Bert Schneider that if we came up with the right songs for the pilot show, that we would be able to produce the records when it came time to do the album for the Monkees.
Instead, producers Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider hired Don Kirshner, president of Screen Gems Columbia Music in New York.
What they decided to do was bring Don Kirshner in as the musical supervisor, because he had this whole roster of New York-based singers, songwriters, who had all these wonderful songs that he could utilize.
One of Kirshner's songwriters was a teenager named Carol Bayer Sager. Writing for the Monkees was the break Sager was looking for.
He said finally, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you do a song for the Monkees. You know, it was like, yay.
Meanwhile, Voice and Heart doggedly pursued Kirshner for a shot at writing for the show.
All the time, we're kind of pulling at Donnie's coat sleeves. Donnie, this is our baby. We know what the sound of the Monkees should be. Give us a shot. So we played him 2 or 3 songs, and he was sold, and so we were back on as producers.
In the summer of 1966, 2 months before the series premiered, the Monkees were asked to make an appearance at a gathering of NBC affiliates at Chasen's Restaurant in Hollywood.
It's a business-type thing with all these very stuffy, cigar-smoking executives, and the Monkees got a little too zany, and some of these older executives thought, we don't want to have anything to do with this.
That was one of the first sort of like personal appearances that we made together as a foursome. We'd been busy improvising and having a good old time doing all this stuff that we needed to do to get to know each other. And we were just being ourselves. We were just being young, 20-year-old guys having a good old time.
That night at Chasen's was only the beginning. Back at the studio, the Monkees faced one obstacle after another.
We had a lot of converting to do. We used to go into the cafeteria at Columbia Pictures, and people used to get up and leave.
At the time, long hair and rock and roll and the Beatles and the Stones and all the pop world was alternative culture. This was the alternative reality, the counterculture of the time. To the vast majority of America, long hair was synonymous with crimes against nature.
That was about to change. While the Monkees filmed episodes for the upcoming series, they were also working on their first album. In August 1966, the single Last Train to Clarksville was released nationwide. The singers were not some studio band. They were the Monkees. Written by Voice and Heart, the song was used as a promotional tie-in for the TV show.
Last Train to Clarksville came out a month before the TV show was broadcast, and it was already going up the charts. The record was already top 40 before the show ever hit the air.
On Sunday, September 11th, 1966, the Monkees made an appearance in the coastal town of San Juan Capistrano in Southern California. In honor of their song, the town was renamed Clarksville for the day. The Monkees climbed aboard a rented passenger train and delivered their first live performance.
Nobody knew who we were. All the kids that were on the train, they'd won a contest or something, or they'd like generated all this hype and this buzz.
On Monday night, September 12, 1966, the Monkees television show premiered on NBC. Author Mark Bigo.
What happened on the set of the TV show of the Monkees is nonsense made sense. They created their own world.
We were like 4 brothers, you know, like friends, living in this beach house with girls and jobs and things and getting evicted and bad guys and good guys.
The show was a hit, and the Monkees were thrust into the frenzy of instant stardom. Coming up.
Very quickly, you know, the line between fantasy and reality disappeared.
And later.
He flipped the audience the finger and threw his guitar into the audience and walked off stage.
Now, the True Hollywood Story is on every night at 9. This week, it's Plummet from Primetime. The Monkees.
We beat each other up all the time.
The Bradys.
And he can't come out of the closet.
Batman.
Behind that mask.
Three's Company.
I was lied to my face.
Different Strokes.
And I spent 9 months of my life in jail.
On screen, they had it all. Off screen, it all went wrong. It's Plummet from Primetime week on the True Hollywood Story. This week, every night at 9, only on E!
Let's see, what's your favorite day?
It's Friday, and now Fridays has some great new pastas, sautéed toppings, delicate sauces, all tossed together in great big bowls. Goodness gracious, great bowls of pasta at Fridays.
I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to stay home with Mom. I love my mom. But Dad said everybody needs to leave home sometime. That's how you learn about the Force. Mom says if Anakin could do it, I could do it.
For all Jedi Knights in training,
Bye, Mommy!
it's Star Wars at Big Kmart. Like no place on Earth.
You still have your pay stubs from your college job?
Why would they need that?
You never know.
What do you really need to get a home loan with a great rate? Just countrywide branch managers with the power to say yes.
I can sure use those statements.
Still looking.
So getting a loan is easy and fast.
Just checking in again.
Peter, I think I have everything I need from you.
It's okay. I don't want to rush the loan committee.
I am the loan committee. Your loan is approved.
We never stop thinking about what you need, and that makes home buying easy. Really.
Imagine TV.
What I was trying to do here was capture the hopelessness of modern life. There's no vases, no fruit, it's just quiet. It's permanent, but yet expansive. It's the same here as it is from here. In fact, it's me.
You ran out of paint and the art store wouldn't take a check again, right?
Right.
Consider the Visa check card instead of checks, or cash. It's fast, easy, and accepted everywhere Visa is, so you can get what you need.
What I was trying to do here...
And get on with life.
You know how long it had been since I'd been out on a date?
Mom's really nervous.
And how many stores I had to go to before I found that purple dress.
You like it? Awesome. I love purple.
But when I wanted the exact shade of purple for my eyes,
Mom.
I went to Rite Aid. Too much, huh?
Totally.
With Rite Aid's Cosmetics money-back guarantee, I just exchanged it. So, what do you think?
Much better.
Risk-free cosmetics at Rite Aid. It's not just a store, it's a solution.
Don't be late.
When I get a migraine, I just want to get rid of it. And I found a way to do it in one dose. One dose with Excedrin Migraine. It's the one doctors recommend most for migraine pain. Excedrin Migraine. Safely relieves migraine pain in just one dose.
Yes, it's new Herbal Essences facial care. Yes, a surprisingly gentle way to get glorious skin. And yes, a totally organic experience for your face.
Maybe a little further this time.
Okay, that's good. Go to the right.
That's good.
Oh, wait, something.
Oh, Grandma, you did it again. Move with everybody else.
A new way to look at everything on health.
Introducing Intel's email postcard on the Kodak Picture CD. You'll find a reason to send one.
Hello, I'm Hank Azaria, the voice of Apu Nasapima Petalon, the television show The Simpsons. You're watching E-Entertainment Television. Very entertaining.
The hit single Last Train to Clarksville, released in August 1966, climbed the record charts and put the Monkees' fledgling TV show on the map. But this was all part of an elaborate charade. Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, and Mike Nesmith sang the songs featured in the show, but they didn't write the songs, nor did they play the instruments on the recordings. Initially, the Monkees went along, and then the critics began their assault. The first episode of The Monkees debuted on NBC on September 12, 1966. The premise was preposterous. 4 young rock and roll musicians living on their own in a California beach house. Controversy and fantasy. The perfect recipe for enticing young viewers to tune in big numbers. Author Mark Bigo.
The teenage audience in general loved this. They loved the unconventionality of it. They loved the kind of teenage appeal that was there.
Assistant Director John Anderson.
The little kids loved it because the Monkees would always win. They'd always outsmart the adults.
As the series began attracting viewers, the Monkees' music was also winning fans. By November 1966, Last Train to Clarksville, the first single on the group's debut album, hit #1. That same month, another Monkees single was released. I'm a Believer, written by Neil Diamond, went straight to #1 and stayed there for 7 weeks. Don Kirshner was music supervisor for the Monkees.
And I knew with I'm a Believer, Neil Diamond's song, and Mickey singing it as lead, that we would outsell the Beatles and be the biggest.
A monumental challenge. If the Monkees were going to outsell the Beatles, they would have to tour. And if they were going to tour, they would have to play their own music. The boys filmed the TV show, then spent hours practicing their songs. The pace was grueling.
It was so intense that, you know, it's like, I don't know, being in a plane crash or something, or a car wreck, you know, you're in shock.
The sessions were indeed intense, and there was little time to prepare for their first major gig. Monkees historian Gary Strobel.
And they performed their very first concert in Honolulu, Hawaii, on December 3rd, 1966.
And the idea of that was that we went so far away from the mainland that if we bombed out, no one would know. That was the idea. And we went and played Miss Teenage America.
Being on stage after the initial abject terror of being out there playing, I mean, I'd been in groups before, but I was playing a new instrument. I'd only had about a year to learn.
None of that seemed to matter. The boys, who critics said couldn't sing and couldn't play, electrified an army of crazed young fans.
Could not hear anything anybody else was doing, and there was 25,000 teenage girls screaming their guts out. Very quickly, you know, the line between fantasy and reality disappeared. When did we become a group? What defines a group? Is it when you travel on a bus and do one-nighters? Is it when you record? Or is it when you play live? You know, I think when we finally went on the road and played live, you know, I suppose that was the moment.
Despite their success in concert, Monkees Mania did not impress the critics. They were relentless, accusing the foursome of being phonies. The criticism outraged the entire group, especially Peter Tork and Mike Nesmith.
It was Mike who was the most adamant against being told by the critics, well, you really aren't a serious musician. Both Mike and Peter had been in bands before going to the audition for the Monkees, so that they were the ones that were the most incensed.
Why? Because the Monkees were not the only band using studio musicians in recording sessions.
These same people that played on the Monkees sessions were the same people that played on the Beach Boys records, the Mamas and the Papas, the Byrds, but because of the Monkees' blatant beginnings, they became the scapegoat of the industry.
The music business was threatened by the Monkees' very existence.
At the time, there was a lot of animosity about the Monkees from the radio industry, because you had to know the right people. I don't know how to put this gently, and you had to pay the right people. Hey, what the hell, payola, you know, still exists and did back then. All of a sudden, the Monkees comes along, and the radio stations had to play the songs, whether they liked it or not.
The Monkees were lambasted by critics and a host of music industry mavens, to which their adoring fans said, so what?
The bottom line was, it didn't make a bit of difference. And that also pissed them off, because they would write these, you know, terrible, you know, articles, and nobody cared. Nobody read them, nobody listened, but our fans didn't even read music press.
Instead, the fans were reading teen magazines.
The Monkees were not only looked at for their ability as actors and as musicians, but for their ability to sell product by their face value. was NBC and Columbia Pictures and the producers of the Monkees who knew from the very, very beginning that merchandising was going to be part of the whole ploy, the whole phenomenon of the Monkees. And although the individual Monkees themselves only get a small percentage of the merchandising, the machine that put the Monkees together knew immediately. These lunch boxes, these dolls, the clothes, the shirts, everything with Monkees emblazoned on them was big money.
The Monkees were everywhere. And by January 1967, just 4 months after premiering, their television series found its niche.
They created their own world. They didn't have to fit into the regular, normal, logical world. They created their own existence.
Casting director Eddie Foy III.
They had a charisma and a magnetism that jumped off the screen, and there was a freedom that drew the younger audience. They were also the audience that bought records.
The TV show was a hit, and the Monkees' music was just as popular. While almost all of the Monkees' songs were written by songwriters under contract to Don Kirshner, Mike Nesmith also wrote songs for the Monkees. Nesmith wanted his songs released as singles. The producers said no. Author Randy Massengill.
They would give him like 1 or 2 tracks on each album just to make him happy. And he would always record them in a different recording studio from the Monkees. He didn't want anyone near his music.
Nesmith then came up with an ingenious way to have his music heard.
What he started to do was insist that his compositions were used as the B-sides of the singles. And he got an additional check for writing the flip side to all those hit singles and really became the wealthiest Monkee.
The Monkees' all for one and one for all attitude began to crumble.
I write songs too. I always did. It's just that I wasn't there insisting that my song was on the album. Mike and Peter did. I insist that I have our songs on this album, otherwise I'm not going to be on it. I'm leaving, dead again. You know, it's like pirates taking over the ship, you know. And that's basically what started to happen. It was every man for himself.
I wish I would have gotten more involved earlier in the writing and then in the songwriting and stuff, because that's where there's an enormous amount of money, of course. And it would have been much more of a contribution.
Money was one issue. Controlling their destiny was another. In January, the Monkees' second album, More of the Monkees, was released to record stores nationwide.
It hit the fan when Mike Nesmith saw the second album cover and we were all dressed in JCPenney clothes. That's when he blew his cork, because this was supposed to be for an ad campaign. They took it upon themselves, without any conference with us, to put this picture of us with JCPenney clothes on.
And on the back is Donnie Kirshner saying what a wonderful job he did, asking all these other wonderful people to make a record for us. And it was like, so that blew it sky high for us.
Kirshner did acknowledge the musicians who wrote the songs, but he also gave high praise to the Monkees.
I didn't want to put out anything that they really didn't like or something that they would be aggravated about.
Simmering tensions began to heat up. The Monkees wanted the one thing they weren't allowed: creative control over their music.
We could struggle all we wanted. Kirshner didn't notice. You know, we were just little tiny things. But it was after the second album when we said we want to do it ourselves.
The crisis boiled over at the end of January 1967.
I brought the boys 4 checks. I went to the Beverly Hills Hotel, and Davey, Mickey, Mike, and Peter were there. I gave them all $250,000 apiece. And Mike proceeded to put his fist through the wall at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Money wasn't the issue. Artistic freedom was.
We got a bit angry, and Mike got angrier than the 3 of us. And I looked at Lester Sill, who was the vice president of music, Screen Gems. And we walked out of the place together, and I looked at him and said, Lester, should we say goodbye now or later? I said, because this is the beginning of the end.
Jones was right. And then, only weeks later, Mike Nesmith pushed the Monkees dangerously close to the edge.
Michael spilled the beans at some news conference. Call us fake because, by God, we are. Well, everybody took him at his word.
Mike Nesmith's confession simply confirmed what the media suspected all along. The press began calling the band the Prefab Four. Angry and frustrated, the Monkees were determined to stop the biting criticism by making their first real record. Nesmith asked Chip Douglas, bass player with the Turtles to produce the Monkees' next album.
The next thing I knew, he was approaching me in the Whiskey A Go-Go and saying, we need a guy that we can trust in the studio that will help us play our own instruments. He said, don't worry, I'll teach you everything you need to know. Just stick with us and we'll have a great time, which we did.
Douglas's first producing effort, The Girl I Knew Somewhere, was written by Nesmith. They planned to release the song as a single, then as a featured cut on the Monkees' third album. But Don Kirshner was still calling the shots, and he had a better idea for the Monkees' next single.
Don Kirshner decided to release a record without anybody's authorization. It was a song called A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You, which was another Neil Diamond record. It was their third single.
The song was another huge hit for the Monkees, but Kirshner's independent move was too much. Don Kirshner was fired by Screen Gems Columbia Music.
I sued Columbia Pictures and got the biggest settlement in the history of Columbia Pictures. But don't forget, I was fired, and the Monkees eventually, I think you can tell, went right down the tubes.
Coming up.
Frodis was a code name for grass, which was about the only thing anybody was doing, you know, except maybe drinking beer.
And later.
This was like the end of the Monkees, and they were actually putting on film.
Haven't heard from the network that knows Hollywood best. The E! True Hollywood Story, coming in August, every night at 9, only on E!
Turn the lights off. Turn that light off.
Rated R, now playing.
Doesn't your body love fruit?
Everybody loves fruit.
Hanging fruit? Chilled fruit? Cool fruit?
Everybody loves fruit.
Bodies in motion, bodies at rest. The new Cotton Boxer collection from Fruit. More fashionable, more comfortable. New print, new styles, the new Fruit.
Everybody loves.
It's Cotton Boxers from Fruit of the Loom. Go out and get it.
The Acura Integra, equipped with a race-proven 16-valve twin-cam engine. So it can take you just about anywhere. Quickly. The 1999 Integra from Acura.
Is it me, guys? Or do we really look ridiculous?
Man, for free Bud Light, I'm doing 70s night.
Come on, brother.
Shut the door! You're letting in a draft.
For the great taste that won't throw you up and never let you down, make it a Bud Light.
2 words, hot stock, perfect for us.
You get a sexy portfolio that'll make you rich. Me, a small commission.
Trust me, I'm only here to make you money.
Before you go here, go here. Whether you're tracking your own stocks or the market, at go.com, you're in charge.
This is the sale of the century. Nobody works the numbers like me. Honest, Bob. Tax, license, wheels not included. Heck, nothing's included. Come on down and spend your hard-earned cash today.
Before you go here, go here. Whether you're comparing prices or options, at go.com, you're in the driver's seat.
Mickey D's.
has the rhythm of your morning. Did somebody say McDonald's?
Hello, I'm Freddie Prinze Jr. You are watching E Entertainment. 4 years I've been waiting to do it.
Sold, you've got yourself a deal. No, that's not it.
Sold! You've got yourself a deal! Uh-huh! I knew you'd be back. You can't pass up a good deal, can you? It's the mulching action, right? Huh? You want to take it for a test drive?
I keep telling you, Tutwiler, I just deliver the mail.
Need customers? Time Warner Cable Advertising delivers targeted, waste-free advertising that gets results.
Hey, mailmen have lunch, too! Don't they?
This is Imagine TV.
The 1999 Mercury Cougar. As wild as it is, we've given it even more bite. Wow. Lease it for only $279 a month, with only $500 down. Get wild now at your California Mercury dealer.
In early 1967, midway through their first season on TV, the Monkees and their music supervisor, Don Kirshner, faced off in a high-stakes tug-of-war. Pride, reputations, and millions of dollars were on the line. The Monkees won the battle, but the war for creative control was far from over. Despite a barrage of bad reviews from critics, the Monkees TV series was a big success with young audiences and was renewed for a second season by NBC. Casting director Eddie Foy III.
All of a sudden it hit. And when it hit, it went through the ceiling.
Julie Newmar, best known for her role as Catwoman on the Batman TV series, starred on the show.
There would be lines of girls hanging around the lot, 20 deep. How they got on the lot, I don't know, but it was very difficult to get on the set. I can tell you, I was invisible.
The Monkees conquered America, then set their sights on the international market. During a brief hiatus from the TV show in February 1967, 21-year-old Mickey Dolenz and 24-year-old Mike Nesmith traveled to England. Their mission, to promote the Monkees records and their TV series, which premiered in the UK 2 months earlier. Following their appearance on a popular British TV show, Top of the Pops, Mickey Dolenz met 21-year-old Samantha Just.
I saw this gorgeous girl in the cafeteria or something, and she looked at me and I looked at her, and it was just like out of some movie, you know, like Half Speed. And I asked somebody I was with, I said, "Who's that?" And they said, "Well, that's Samantha Just. She plays the records on the show."
Later that evening, Dolenz asked an assistant to invite Just to his hotel room.
They called me and invited me to this party, but there really was no party.
I just remember being so infatuated with her. I was just absolutely, just so crazy about her. But we were virtually inseparable from that moment on.
But the Dolenz-Just relationship wasn't the only unforgettable encounter that took place. Dolenz and Mike Nesmith met the band that was rocking the world, the Beatles.
We just sat there and got stoned and watched television. It was kind of cool. If you have broadcast TV with an antenna, and the channel isn't tuned perfectly, you know, remember all the snow, you had snowy stuff? And we sat there 4 hours watching the snow on the television.
The Fab Four and the so-called Prefab Four got along famously. Author Mark Vigo.
They appreciated what the Monkees were going through with being suddenly pop icons and living under a microscope. So that the Beatles themselves couldn't wait to meet the Monkees. They really looked at them as their contemporaries.
There was a certain camaraderie, you know, because we'd been through the same kind of fire and run the gauntlet, you know. So there was some things in common.
In March 1967, the Monkees resumed shooting their TV series. But the show and a demanding concert schedule left little time for anything else.
I was just a 20-year-old kid caught in this hurricane, this tornado, this whirlwind of singing and acting and playing and touring.
The pace was exhausting. with no end in sight. In May, the Monkees recorded a third album, Headquarters, their only LP to include all original music and lyrics. Chip Douglas was the producer.
They really began to play together as a band and enjoy themselves as musicians.
We very specifically made a point of playing every friggin' note on that entire album. And by that time, you know, we were pretty good. We were very good.
Headquarters was not as successful sales-wise. Although it was a #1 album, it was #1 for 1 week, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band came along, and suddenly everyone was into a different type of music.
In June 1967, the Monkees surprised the critics and just about everyone else, winning 2 Emmy Awards for their TV series. Monkees historian Gary Strobel.
They won for Outstanding Comedy Series, and the award went to Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider.
In Hollywood, the winner is the Monkees.
And they also won for Best Directing, which went to James Frawley. It was a very exciting event because nobody thought that they would even have a chance, yet alone be nominated to win those awards.
Thanks to the Monkees who really won the award. Thank you.
Assistant Director John Anderson.
The show was so unique and it was so incredibly successful that I think on its own it had a shot at and got that award, probably because of its own the momentum of its success.
What made the show unique looked surprisingly simple, but looks were deceiving.
I wasn't a loose guy in those days in terms of being able to just do funny things on camera. Boy, turn that camera on. And we had improv lessons beforehand, and those were very valuable because they teach you the essence of a joke.
It was less scripted, and there was more action, more interaction, more spontaneity. Always spontaneity seemed the juice of their genius.
The good-natured hijinks that became a trademark of the Monkees' on-screen persona often turned ugly when the camera stopped rolling.
We fought and beat each other up all the time. I had 7 stitches from Peter Talk in my eye.
All I remember is Davy giving me a nutter, which is, boom, you use your forehead to smack somebody in the teeth. He had to stand on tiptoe to do it. Sorry, Davy, a little joke.
Mike wasn't there half the time, you know. For most of the time, Mike was, I can't make it today. I got to have my tonsils out, you know. So, you know, you'll see a lot of the Monkee episodes throughout the second season where Mike Nesmith wasn't even in them.
Still, the Monkees were more in demand than ever. And during the summer of 1967, they embarked on a cross-country concert tour. Prior to their first performance, Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork attended the Monterey Pop Festival. One of the acts was a talented but unpredictable musician, Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy came on right after The Who, and The Who had smashed their guitars, and Jimmy burned his guitar up. I said, I just saw that act. Shows what I knew. But Mickey got it. Mickey went, this guy's ferociously good.
We happened to need an opening act at the time, and I mentioned it to the producer. I said, boy, he'd be great because he's very theatrical.
Hendrix opened for the Monkees on July 8, 1967 in Jacksonville, Florida. Fans were stunned.
Jimi Hendrix was playing in front of these preteen audiences. In many cases, the parents were there. And here comes this black guitarist with the huge afro haircut, playing this psychedelic music and making obscene gestures on stage. It just shocked everybody.
I always tell that story of Jimi Hendrix going, you know, Publies, come, we want Davy. Foxy lady, monkeys, monkeys.
And it ended in Forest Hills. July 16th, the last date at Forest Hills, he flipped the audience the finger and threw his guitar into the audience and walked off stage.
That was Jimi Hendrix's 7th and last performance with the Monkees. Despite the loss of their opening act, the band faced a seemingly endless summer with more than 20 cities still to go. Brendan Cahill coordinated the concert tour.
Sometimes we'd go 8 to 10 days without a break.
And that's pretty hard, because as soon as we would wrap the concert, it was back to the airport, onto the plane, onto the next city, to a hotel, and then in the morning everyone was up because it was time to go and promote the show in that city for that night.
When I joke about not remembering a lot about that, it's not because I was stoned to my ass all the time. It's because too much is going on, and your brain just shuts down.
Mickey's relationship with Samantha Just, however, was heating up. Since meeting a few months earlier, the couple carried on a long-distance romance. But midway through the concert tour, Samantha left England to be with Dolenz.
When I toured with them at summer, I really realized that it was very hard to go backwards and forwards. And I could see that it was very hard to keep a relationship going unless one of us made a decision, and it obviously had to be me.
When the Monkees tour finally ended in late August 1967, Samantha moved in with Mickey. Meanwhile, Mike and Phyllis Nesmith were expecting their second child. The bachelors of the group, 25-year-old Peter Tork and 21-year-old Davy Jones, remained unattached. In September 1967, the Monkees were back on the Columbia Pictures lot to begin shooting the second season of their popular TV show. But the magic was missing.
We were getting bored easy, you know. Again, we're 22 years old. And after having lived and spent months in London and Paris and New York and traveling, and suddenly at 8 o'clock in the morning, every morning, we're in this rather dank, smelly soundstage in the middle of Hollywood. No audience, no people, just a bunch of sweaty grips, you know, standing around waiting for us to be funny.
Everybody lost that, you know, spark, that energy. You know, the scripts weren't as strong. And when they started doing stuff the week before for the next week, the spontaneity and the individuality and the artistry went out the window.
But there was no shortage of mischief and mayhem.
We just made too much noise everywhere. So they built us this huge black box. The only thing I can describe it as, like an ice box. It had a big icebox door on it. Completely soundproofed, air conditioned. Because it started just getting too rowdy, you know, all the time, and they couldn't film other scenes because there's no way that they could keep a lid on it.
Our friends used to come in, we used to play music and write songs, and it was great. It was like our own little club.
The black box offered an escape, a place where the Monkees could hang out and do as they pleased.
It was just where we could get high and play loud music. So we did, you know, we had little amps out there and keyboards, and we played and had fun and, you know, had partied.
Photographer Henry Diltz.
Mickey actually started calling it Frodis, just as a kind of a code name, and he'd say Frodis to the little girls, and they'd, hey, Frodis rules, you know. They didn't know what they were saying.
An ingenious lighting system was created to alert the Monkees when they were needed on the set.
Inside, I had 4 light bulbs, rigged up 4 light bulbs, one in each color, yellow, red, blue, green. And when I would need any one of them, or all 4 of them, or whatever combination, I'd flick the switch on the stage for their color.
And all of a sudden, these lights are, Mickey, and you, oh my God, your eyes start bleeding, and you go out and do your scene. But it worked.
So did the series, which continued to attract a huge audience in season 2. Executives at NBC and Columbia Screen Gems knew the Monkees had the Midas touch. In January 1968, Columbia Pictures committed $750,000, a sizable sum in the 60s, to fund a feature film starring the Monkees.
They had been so pent up with NBC's constraints and Don Kirshner's constraints as what kind of music they could use, that suddenly they had free reign, all this production money, and they could do anything they wanted.
We wanted to make a movie. We just said we just absolutely do not want another episode.
The script was created by an unknown actor, Jack Nicholson, along with Bob Rafelson and Bert Snyder and the 4 Monkees.
It was one weekend in Ohio when we all sat around smoking grass, getting high, and writing this down, all these you ever saw the movie? It's all over the place. We came up with loads of ideas, and they wrote them all down. It was it was like a different movie all the way through. You didn't know what was going on because we were all, you know, whacked out on California Gold or whatever you call it at the time.
Coming up.
Michael got a call at the studio. The medics had called, and they said, just take her home.
And later.
Substance abuse caught up with me. That was a pretty low point.
an award-winning Hollywood star, but was the sudden death of this golden girl a suicide or staged to look that way? Mysteries and Scandals premieres Inger Stevens tomorrow at 8:30. Only on E. Fame ain't the bitch.
Kim's always dreamed of becoming a sportscaster for television, but with help from the fashion emergency experts help her score winning points in front of the camera. It's E's Fashion Emergency, hosted by Emmy, tomorrow at 7, only on E.
It's payback time. The power has shifted. The 99 Honda clearance is here. Now you're in control. The 99 Honda clearance. Don't you just love it when you win?
Thomas Crown has never been caught.
It's not about the money.
But just how big of a thief are you?
But he's never gone this far.
This painting is worth $100 million.
And nobody has ever been this close before.
You've been busy.
And whose head are you after?
Yours.
From the director of Die Hard.
Where's he right now?
This Friday, the only way to win,
You get me?
is to stay ahead of the game.
Hold it!
The Thomas Crown Affair, rated R, starts Friday.
Introducing Doritos 3Ds. A whole new shape that begs to be eaten. In very loud ways.
Ay, Chihuahua.
Doritos 3D snacks. Same loud taste, new loud shape.
Victoria's Secret adds a new dimension to cotton lingerie. Stretch. Stretch cotton lingerie. This, too, is Victoria's Secret.
Hey, it's a brand new day. So who needs yesterday's coffee or yesterday's news? So why are you wearing yesterday's contacts? Introducing Focus Dailies, the one-day contact lenses you put in each morning and throw away each night. You'll never clean another contact lens or feel more comfortable. Revolutionary Focus Dailies. Anything else is like yesterday's socks. Call now for your free 5-day trial. Focus Dailies, today's contacts.
Once I asked my Italian mom, Ma, how come your kitchen's always full of people? She said, because my cooking's always full of surprises. And that's kind of how the Olive Garden is. You think you've had Alfredo. And then here comes a new seafood Alfredo. They take shrimp and crawfish, saute them, and toss them with fettuccine Alfredo. It's Alfredo like you've never tasted, with all the salad and breadsticks you want. It's part of the Olive Garden's Hospitaliano. You know, taste what you love like you never tasted it before. The Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
There's an easier way to get to the front of Universal's River Adventure ride.
Ready, Grandma?
Just use your Discover card and skip the line your second time through. Just one more way it pays to discover.
Oh, my.
A new way to look at everything on health.
Today is August 1st. By September 1st, your teeth can be dramatically whiter, remarkably whiter, in just 4 weeks. Dazzling White from Rembrandt, a beautiful, whiter smile, safely. Dazzling White toothpaste, it's proven.
By early 1968, during the second season of their popular television series, the Monkees rebelled against a power structure they didn't like and couldn't control. They withdrew into their own world, a place just off the soundstage, known as the Black Box. There, during breaks in filming, they made music, hung out with friends, and smoked pot. The last episode of the Monkees' second season on television was broadcast in March of 1968. That show proved to be their swan song. Despite decent ratings, the show was canceled. Initially, NBC executives were committed to a third season, but the Monkees weren't interested in maintaining the status quo. Instead, the group wanted to create a series that was entirely different. But NBC didn't agree, and after 2 seasons, the show was off the air.
I think we should have gone for another year. I think we should have gone on, and as I look back now, if I'd been in charge, I would have done my best to make it happen. I would have evolved it into maybe an hour-long variety show.
Their television show was history, but the Monkees were not. Already in production on their movie project, Head, they jumped in with reckless abandon. The film was a satire of 3 different movie genres: comedy, drama, and a Western. The script, written by Jack Nicholson, called for some concert footage. In May 1968, the Monkees performed at Valley Auditorium in Salt Lake City, Utah. The concert was filmed, and the footage was later used in a movie. While shooting the movie, 22-year-old Davy Jones was becoming seriously involved with a woman named Linda Haynes.
We were going out, I think, maybe a couple of months. And then he just suggested that I just stay there, you know, move my things in.
But for Davy Jones, having a live-in partner was not compatible with being a teen idol.
He wasn't really supposed to just go out with one person very long. It wasn't good for his image. So basically we were secretly dating, and only our friends really knew that we lived together. He was even going out with Sally Field and other people, and for him it was because they were friends, but of course tabloids always pick up all that stuff.
We never were shown in pictures with girls, and, you know, Mike Nesmith was the only one that was married, and everybody knew that. But, you know, he was not the heartthrob of the group. I was.
The carnival atmosphere that surrounded the Monkees was suffocating, especially for the women in their lives.
Sometimes we'd come home, actually, and find, this happened a couple times, that they were either in the yard or once some kids were in the house. And that was really scary.
The group being so successful, we tended to be very isolated because people camped outside the house and you couldn't just go out when you wanted to. And that tended to be our lives for months.
To help bring a sense of stability to their chaotic lives, Mickey Dolenz and Samantha Just decided to marry. They exchanged vows on July 12, 1968. Mickey was 23, Samantha 22. Samantha was also 2 months pregnant at the time. But the pace never slowed. The Monkees worked hard and played harder.
We did throw some great parties, you know, and very memorable ones. I spent 2 years, 1 night at a party.
Assistant Director John Anderson.
I remember a party at Peter Tork's one time, and there in the middle of the room was Jimi Hendrix, just kind of like this.
Photographer Henry Dills.
And there were just all kinds of people there, you know, some of them staying there in the various little guest houses and guest rooms, and kind of like a commune, you know, just a natural, free-flowing commune type of thing.
In an era of flower power and free expression, Tork's parties were not for the timid.
Whenever we'd go over to Peter's house, generally, especially around the pool and so forth, there were a lot of unclothed people. And because we all sort of had our clothes on all the time, it was often a little awkward.
There were times when it was appropriate not to have any clothes on, you know, and some of those were, you know, skinny dipping and I had a sauna and, you know, that kind of thing. There were times when it was appropriate. You know, you go to a hot tub, a lot of times people aren't wearing any clothes, you know, and that's the way it goes.
Peter was a free spirit, and so were the women he dated, including Ren Stewart.
Peter and Ren I would see around a lot. You know, they were kind of all over town, and I remember one time seeing them at the Renaissance Fair, and it was at a point where Peter had grown a big beard and had this little following of hippie ladies, kind of, you know.
The Monkees were riding high, but in mid-1968, near tragedy struck. Mike Nesmith's wife, Phyllis, was seriously injured in a car accident.
When the Monkees became a success, Michael loved buying cars, and he bought a Lamborghini, and she drove it off the mountainside and had this huge gash across her face and her neck. And I think Michael got a call at the studio. They said, just take her home.
25-year-old Nesmith was a devout Christian Scientist. He would not permit his wife to be treated by medical professionals.
She was in her room, in bed, and she was cut, and I was a little nervous that she wasn't going to the hospital to be treated, but she was a Christian Scientist, so they didn't go to the hospital.
In August 1968, while Phyllis recovered from her injuries, Mike Nesmith became a father for the third time, but the mother was not his wife.
He had a relationship with Nerit Wild, who happened to be a friend of Peter Tork's, and I think Michael was having some marital problems and had a brief relationship with Nerit, and a child came out of it.
When Jason was born, she gave him Mike's last name, Jason Nesmith, but Mike didn't acknowledge Jason for a long time.
Despite all personal and professional crises, the Monkees carried on. In the fall of 1968, the Monkees embarked on a sold-out tour of Australia and Japan. On October 5th, soon after their arrival in the Far East, Davy Jones received a call from his wife, Linda. She had just given birth to a baby girl. They named her Talia. Then, in November, the Monkees movie premiered. Head was a box office disaster.
You say we're manufactured. To that we all agree. So make your choice and we'll rejoice in never being free. Hey, hey, we are the Monkees. We've said it all before. The money's in, we're made of tin. We're here to give you more. The money's in, we're made of tin. We're here to give you...
The reason that Head didn't work is that there were too many cooks. There was no central story. It's an enjoyable thing to watch in sort of a 60s sort of fashion, but make sure you have a bottle of wine with you because it'll make absolutely no sense.
This was like the end of the Monkees, and they were actually putting on film. And that's what you look at, and you see that what they're doing. The Monkees are, you know, being thrown in the tank and taken away.
In December 1968, still reeling from the box office bomb, Davy Jones and Linda Haynes were married in a private ceremony. Davy's not-so-secret life with Linda had become a liability.
Somehow, all of a sudden, magically, it was important. All his handlers said, okay, you have to get married now because it's too risky. And so you need to be married because it'll look better if you're already married in your family.
The family known as the Monkees, however, was about to break apart. 26-year-old Peter Tork announced that he was leaving the group.
When he realized that we weren't going to go back in the studio again and be that kind of band, that group thing that he loved so much, because he loved that experience, he said he'd had enough, and he quit.
This thing sort of came together and came apart, you know, and as soon as it began to come apart, all that I wanted was, you know, slipping through my fingers.
There was dissension in the group, and Peter just decided that he'd had enough of trying to convince critics that they really were musicians. He was the one that wanted to go off and do his own thing. And he was the one that was hanging out with Stephen Stills and a lot of other serious rock musicians then. He wanted to be part of their realm. He didn't want to be part of this manufactured little pop group anymore. And he was the first one to leave the group.
Coming up.
After the Monkees experience, he lost confidence. And when you lose confidence, you can't play music.
And later.
Finally, I just said, this is just too much trouble. This is not any fun anymore.
You haven't heard from the network that knows Hollywood best. The E! True Hollywood Story, coming in August, every night at 9, only on E!
Yeah, folks, there's some turbulence reported ahead. We're going to climb to 30,000 feet.
Taste that won't fill you up and never let you down.
Uh-oh. Make it a Bud Light.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your seat.
Long-distance fees apply.
I'd heard that sound 100 times.
Morning. Greeting available only between the hours of 5 a.m. and 12 noon.
It could only mean one thing. This was a cellular town.
From
Zone A to B, B to C, C to D.
From 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. on weekdays.
Calling's always not quiet with roaming charges.
I'm no hero. I'm just a guy with a better way.
The Sprint PCS Free and Clear plan. Now as little as a dime anytime with free long distance.
When you were a kid, did you carry, was it the A-Team? Introducing the new, redesigned 2000 Mitsubishi Montero Sport. We pity the fool who would drive anything else.
What makes Russell Stover peanut butter and jelly cups different from all the rest? It's the jelly. New Russell Stover peanut butter and jelly cups with Welch's grape jelly or red raspberry. Gushing with flavor. Only from Russell Stover.
Hey, full-figured gals. Are you digging that underwire? Or is it digging you? Introducing the Playtex 18-hour Comfort Wire Bra. Designed with an underwire that's wrapped and cushioned against the skin to comfortably support your every move. Could it be a comfortable underwire? 18-hour from Playtex. Designing comfort.
Hey, working hard or hardly working? Steve Marino, hey, how's it going, fella?
Feeling hungry can affect your mood. That's why there's Balance Bar. It puts great taste, balanced nutrition, and sustained energy in the palm of your hand. Never be out of balance.
You look great in that Old Navy tight vest. You don't look so bad yourself, sis. Oh, I'm seeing double.
Sister, sister? Brother,
Is that magic in that book? I didn't know we had a twin.
It's hip to zip.
This portion of E is brought to you by Old Navy. At Old Navy, shopping is fun again. For the nearest store, call 1-800-OLD-NAVY.
Hi, I'm Britney Spears, and you're watching E! Entertainment Television. This is... I talked to my mother. She called you my boyfriend again.
We went to one prom back when I thought I was.
Thought he liked girls then.
Whoops.
Entertainment Weekly says Trick is magical, a witty and savvy romantic comedy.
You can't ask a one-night stand to come back tomorrow night.
And Rolling Stone calls Trick a remarkable movie.
There was a drag queen in the bathroom?
Hello.
Christian Campbell, J.P. Pittock, and Tori Spelling. Trick, rated R. Now playing. Check local listings.
It's been one adventure after another. Kayaking the rapids of the Colorado. Meeting death on the slopes of the Matterhorn. Or was I watching the Travel Channel?
If you want heart-stopping adventure, there's only one place to go. Everywhere we do. The Travel Channel, now from the Discovery Channel.
Break away with the Travel Channel.
A runaway train from obscurity to fabulous wealth and fame. They were known the world over as the Monkees.
It was mania. They were very hot, and kids were crazy about them, screaming their names. You know, everyone had a favorite.
They even starred in their own TV series. But the fare was steep. The four boys who lived to make music and have fun lasted only 2 seasons on television.
Everybody lost that, spark, that energy.
The setback was devastating.
Michael spilled the beans at some news conference. Call us fake because, by God, we are. Well, everybody took him at his word.
And the Monkees soon drifted into obscurity.
I think that after the Monkees experience, he lost confidence. And when you lose confidence, you can't play music.
In the next 2 hours, we will relive the explosive, only in America saga of the Monkees, featuring exclusive interviews with Davy Jones, Peter Tork, and Mickey Dolenz.
Very quickly, the line between fantasy and reality disappeared.
We'll explore how these 4 young men from very different backgrounds came together to take the country by storm.
They were the American version of the Beatles, that's all, cut and dry. There was nothing more, nothing less.
Go backstage on their chaotic TV set.
We just made too much noise everywhere. So they built us this huge black box.
It was just where we could get high and play loud music.
We fought and beat each other up all the time.
We'll reveal what happened when the bubble finally burst.
I was fired, and the Monkees eventually, I think you can tell, went right down the tubes.
When my substance abuse caught up with me, that was a pretty low point.
And we'll watch the Monkees rise from the ashes on a wave of nostalgia.
We sold Wembley Stadium out. For a group that hasn't had a hit record in over 30 years, I thought that was a pretty good accomplishment.
This is the story of the fickleness of faith and the fight for self-respect. This is the story of the Monkees, the true Hollywood story.
From life's ambition was to be a star.
The year was 1964. American troops were fighting in Vietnam, while at home, love-ins and peace marches protested the escalating war. In Hollywood, Screen Gems, a subsidiary of Columbia Pictures, was a leading producer of television programming. The Screen Gems stable of comedies included Gidget and Bewitched. But executives Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider had an idea for a different kind of television show, inspired by the Beatles' wildly successful movie, A Hard Day's Night. The TV series would feature a group of 4 aspiring rock and roll musicians living on their own in a California beach house. Rafelson and Schneider presented their idea to former child star Jackie Cooper, the Screen Gems VP responsible for approving all television projects. Monkees historian Gary Strobel.
It was an extremely viable idea. Whether it was going to work on television, nobody knew. But Jackie was impressed enough, and he allocated $125,000 to do the pilot.
The producers had a green light, but they needed a name for the band, something catchy and hip.
One of them was called The Creeps, but it had a negative connotation. Another one was called The Inevitables. And I think they even toyed around with the idea of the Turtles, but that had already existed.
Someone tossed out the Monkees, and the name stuck. On September 8, 1965, an ad was placed in the Hollywood Reporter. The ad called for folk and roll musicians and singers to audition for a TV series. But there was more to the ad than met the eye. Author Mark Bigo.
It did say, you must come down, meaning you must not be high when you show up for the audition. They asked for Ben Frank's types. Ben Frank's was kind of like a Denny's type place, a hamburger joint on Sunset Strip, where after all the clubs would close on Sunset, all the kids would go hang out and they would be high or drunk.
437 young men auditioned for the chance to be one of the Monkees. Among them was actor and musician Paul Williams.
I have a kind of a double negative connection to Mickey Dolenz.
Problems. But the fact was, right after the child was born, Phyllis left for Texas. And I would say a few months after that, Mike and Phyllis would reconcile. But the marriage was always on shaky ground after that. They did have another child named Jessica. And they separated shortly after that, and then they divorced.
That was in March 1975. Mickey Dolenz, meanwhile, was also headed for divorce. Mickey loved to party, but his lifestyle finally caught up with him. Fed up, Samantha Dolenz walked out on her famous husband.
But it was all the nightlife and the running around. But he was always playing around, which is what finished off, yeah. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this man, I don't want to be distrusting him.
It was a terrible, terrible, depressing, horrible, time of my life. But I don't blame her. I don't know how she stuck around as long as she did.
Mickey and Samantha divorced in 1975, sending 30-year-old Dolenz into a deep depression. His career stalled. So did the solo career of Davy Jones. But fate had yet another surprise in store. In the summer of 1975, Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, who wrote many of the Monkees songs, met up with Dolenz and Jones. The foursome teamed up and began touring together. Peter Tork and Mike Nesmith were invited to join the new group. They declined.
We did do a tour of Japan and Southeast Asia and every amusement park known to man in the United States.
They'd written so many of the big hits. David and I went and sang them, and they wrote them. And it was a lot of fun, actually.
Fun for the band members, but not for a spouse. In 1976, after a year on the road, Davy Jones became another casualty of the marriage wars.
Oh, that was terrible. I had all those feelings of breakdown like everybody. Why me? Why have I got this? Well, I knew I had got this because I was working on my marriage and I wasn't at home.
I wasn't traveling with him very much anymore because of the children. When we had Talia, it was a lot easier traveling with him. But after Sarah was born, it became a huge to-do. And eventually, we just sort of mutually decided it was time to break up.
And so did the band. Dolenz, Jones, Boyce, and Hart went their separate ways. Davy Jones moved back to England, where he resumed two of his favorite pastimes, performing on stage and competing in horse races. Mickey Dolenz also relocated to England, where he began a career behind the camera as a director for the BBC.
People didn't recognize me, and if I was mentioned in a newspaper or in an article, it wasn't ex-Monkee Mickey Dolenz. I was known as Michael Dolenz, producer-director.
Unlike Mickey Dolenz, Mike Nesmith's career was headed nowhere. His new company, Pacific Arts, continued to struggle. Mike's personal life, however, was on the mend. In February 1976, 33-year-old Nesmith remarried to a woman named Catherine Marie Bild. Then, just 1 year later, on May 12, 1977, Mike received the news that his mother was dead. Betty Nesmith died a very wealthy woman. Almost 20 years had passed since Betty's simple invention, liquid paper, hit the market. The product had turned to gold.
The year before she died, she sold the entire company to Gillette for $50 million, and Michael inherited $25 million.
Mike Nesmith invested a part of his inheritance into his floundering production company, giving the business a much-needed boost. But by 1980, the business still had not turned a profit. Nesmith was on the right track, however, with Pop Clips, a show he produced for Nickelodeon and the small but promising home video market. Gemma Dolenz, Mickey's sister, was a host on the show.
I suppose from that is why they say that he basically invented MTV, because he was one of the first people to put that kind of a thing together.
One of the precursors to MTV really came directly from Mike Nesmith, who did a long-form video called Elephant Parts.
It was an original made-for-home video work, and that had never really been done before. And it was so revolutionary, they created a whole category in the Grammys for the best long-form video, and Michael won the very first award. The Grammy was given to him in 1982.
The award was a turning point for Nesmith and Pacific Arts. Peter Tork was also at a crossroads. His 8-year marriage to Barbara Yanali ended in divorce in 1983. By 1985, 20 years had passed since the formation of the Monkees. Incredibly, there were forces at work to bring the group back together once again. Concert promoter David Fishoff.
I was stuck in a hotel room all by myself, and I was so bored I couldn't fall asleep. And so I put on the TV, and I saw a Monkee TV show at 3 o'clock in the morning.
At the time, Fishoff was promoting a concert series, the Happy Together Tour. The tour included groups from the 60s, the Turtles, Herman's Hermits, and the Grassroots. Fishoff thought the Monkees would be an ideal headliner act for the concert series. He began making inquiries about the Monkees. Executives at Columbia Pictures gave Fishoff the rights to use the Monkees' name and logo in conjunction with the tour for a mere $3,500. Fishoff then approached Peter Tork.
I invited him to come see one of my shows, and at the pier here in New York City, and I saw him tapping the whole time, and then he turned to me and said, "We can do this. We can do this."
1 down, 3 to go, although Fishoff didn't feel that Mike Nesmith would join the party.
I never really officially approached Mike. Everyone told me, stay away from Mike. He'll never do it. His mother invented liquid paper. He doesn't need the money.
Instead, Fishoff hopped a plane and headed for England to meet with Davy Jones and Mickey Dolenz. The Monkees were about to rock and roll again. Coming up.
It was a very nostalgic, very historical moment for the fans and for us.
Batman. In the swinging 60s, this dynamic duo ruled the tube.
Bang. It just hit like a rocket.
And for a couple of guys in tights, they got a lot of attention.
I didn't understand the volume of conquests that can be achieved until I met Adam.
But the very thing that made this hero super killed his career.
I was getting buried in that costume.
It's the story you haven't heard. Batman Unmasked, Adam West, tomorrow at 9 on the E! True Hollywood Story.
The Acura Integra, equipped with a race-proven 16-valve twin-cam engine. So it can take you just about anywhere. Quickly. The 1999 Integra from Acura.
There's an easier way to get to the front of Universal's River Adventure ride.
Ready, Grandma?
Just use your Discover card and skip the line your second time through. Just one more way it pays to discover.
Oh, my.
Hey, it's a brand new day. So who needs yesterday's coffee or yesterday's news? So why are you wearing yesterday's contacts? Introducing Focus Dailies, the one-day contact lenses you put in each morning and throw away each night. You'll never clean another contact lens or feel more comfortable. Revolutionary Focus Dailies. Anything else is like yesterday's socks. Call now for your free 5-day trial. Focus Dailies, today's contacts.
Sorry. Not enough. No, still short.
For the great taste that will fill you up and never let you down.
Paper or plastic? Paper.
Make it a Bud Light.
Guys, need a receipt?
Hi, I'm Steve. This is Kathy.
Hi.
And we have not seen Tony as yet, but it's going to happen.
We put in a lot of hours each day. We keep our eye on the door.
Yeah.
And he's always got the camera ready.
I've got the camera. I'm a kind of a home hobbyist photographer.
He's
and
wonderful.
We've got an album full of pictures of Tony, sort of.
You can't really make them out, but
I mean, we can see it because we were there. But
they have their own beauty, I think.
Hey, oh.
No.
No.
They're great.
Okay, the Hollywood Bowl. Okay, I go left on La Brea, right? No, left, right? Exit at Cahuenga, south on the 5, west on the 10, and when you see a massive sign, get off.
Before you go here, go here. Whether locating an address or planning your route, at go.com, you find your own way.
Darling, yes, the house is 100,000 more than we talked about. The location just dreamy. I'll write up the contract so we're ready. Home sweet home, sugar.
Before you go here, go here. Whether you're researching neighborhoods or agents, at go.com, you move on your own terms.
Aha! Got it!
What is it, Professor?
I've discovered a way to get all long-distance calls for only 99 cents.
99 cents? Impossible.
Observe. I simply dial 10-10-220, then 1 and the number, and all calls up to 20 minutes are only 99 cents.
And after 20 minutes?
It's just 9 cents a minute.
That's genius.
I know. Who asked you?
Discover 10-10-220 for yourself.
I've wanted larger breasts since I was in high school, and it didn't matter that friends thought I looked good already. I had my own idea about how I should look, and that's why I chose perfectly natural breast augmentation. Now I've never felt more confident.
To speak with a plastic surgery specialist near you, call 1-877-7-NEW-YOU today. You'll receive valuable information about advancements in breast augmentation and details on monthly payment options. Perfectly natural breast augmentation. It's about looking your best.
Ew.
using Intel's email postcard on the Kodak Picture CD. You'll find a reason to send one.
In the summer of 1985, David Fishoff met with Mickey Dolenz at Mickey's home in Nottinghamshire, England. 40-year-old Dolenz had been producing and directing television programming in the United Kingdom for more than a decade, but he was intrigued by the lure of the road.
I think it was originally going to be like 8 or 10 weeks. It was nothing. It was just a short little thing over the summer. And I spoke to my wife at the time, and we had 3 children, and we thought, oh, wouldn't this be fun?
David Fishoff then approached 39-year-old Davy Jones, who was also living in England. Jones was remarried and had a young daughter. He saw the reunion as a unique business opportunity.
I agreed to do this because I knew it was going to be a great payday. So Mickey has got his deal, I got my deal, and Peter's got his deal. But my stipulation was that I put the show together, I chose the tunes, and I directed it, I lit it, and I choreographed it, which I did.
Mickey Dolenz and Davy Jones joined Peter Tork, who was already on board. But putting the tour together was a nightmare for Fishoff.
For 3 months, there was always another change. It was this one was going to go, that one was going to go, this one was going to fall out, this one wanted more money. I mean, it was just amazing.
In January 1986, Fishoff's concert tour, still several months away, got a surprise boost from a new cable network called MTV.
With the help of MTV doing a Monkees marathon where they broadcast 45 episodes in February of 1986. It coincided with this concert tour of the summer of 1986.
Fishoff cut a deal with MTV to cross-promote the Monkees' anniversary concert tour. The results were nothing short of astonishing.
Kids were lining up, and they would sleep overnight to get the tickets. They'd come home, and the mother said, where were you all night? I said, I was waiting online to get Monkee tickets. And the mother would say, well, I want to go.
The Monkees reunion tour played to sold-out venues across the country. In fact, demand for tickets was so high, several new concert dates were added, and weeks turned to years.
What started out as a 12-week, kind of little hiatus ended up to be like 4 years.
We went on the road, we whizzed them, we sold out everywhere we want.
The Monkees were indeed on a roll, and Arista Records, which had licensed the Monkees' music rights from Columbia, wanted to cash in.
Arista Records had the rights to all the original singles and wanted to put out a new compilation album.
Arista executives asked the group to record 3 original songs to include in the new album.
They called me, personally, and said, from Arista, do you want to do it? I said, yeah. And they called Peter, and Peter was a little bit edgy, and David said no. He just wasn't going to do it all.
Jones felt Arista's offer wasn't lucrative enough.
He wouldn't have anything to do with the Arista record, so Mickey and I went ahead and did it anyway.
Michael Lloyd was producer on Then and Now, the best of the Monkees.
It was complete pandemonium, but it was great fun. And then the record went on the radio and was a hit.
Then and Now proved to be a huge success, selling more than 500,000 albums. The Monkees' new single, That Was Then, This Is Now, became their first top 40 hit in almost 20 years. Davy Jones continued to perform with the group, but he wanted no part of the new single.
When they sang That Was Then, This Is Now, I walked off the stage, and they sang it, and when they'd finished, I came back on. It was making my point that I'm not part of this. It was a great tune. It was a bad deal. That was the only thing. After all the things we'd gone through together, we still couldn't get it together.
Misunderstandings turned to dissension, which began to undermine the tour. Kevin Allen is Mickey Dolenz' manager.
They all wanted to do some individual tunes themselves. So Davy was singing his Broadway tunes, and Mickey was throwing in these torch love ballads and these rock and roll tunes, and Peter was singing some, some of his folk tunes, and it got to be, hard in the presentation of the act.
Then, just prior to a concert date in Los Angeles, David Fishoff received a surprise phone call.
Got a call from Mike's office from his assistant saying that Mike would like to perform at the Greek Theater with the guys. So I went to the guys and said, hey, Mike wants to perform at the Greek Theater. What do you think?
Their initial response to Mike Nesmith's request was no. But then Jones, Dolenz, and Tork changed their tune.
That was more for Mike than for us and for the fans. Our show was a success. We were sold out the whole. So he's coming into a sold-out situation. He wasn't coming in to rekindle anything that hadn't happened.
The evening of September 7th, 1986, Mike Nesmith appeared on stage during the last set at the Greek Theater, marking the first time in 18 years that all four Monkees played together.
It was a very nostalgic, very historical moment for the fans and for us. And it was the highlight of the tour for me, because that was the way it was supposed to be.
The Monkees' 20th anniversary tour was the highest-grossing concert series of 1986. 3 years later, in May 1989, Columbia Pictures, which owned the trademark on the Monkees, ordered the group to stop using the name. Columbia then put the rights up for sale.
It ultimately was purchased by Rhino Records, who, along with buying the rights to the Monkees, owns the rights to the Monkees, and when the Monkees decide they want to do anything, they have to do it with Rhino's blessing.
Rhino Records re-released 9 of the Monkees' original albums. 8 of the 9 albums hit the Billboard charts. Topping it off, on July 10th, 1989, the Monkees received a star on the Walk of Fame. All 4 of the members were in attendance. But by the end of 1989, the Monkees, all in their mid-40s, ran out of steam.
Finally, I just said, this is just too much trouble. This is not any fun anymore. This is like pulling teeth.
There was no comedy and there was no anything other than play the songs, the applause. And now the next song we'd like to do is Last Train to Clarksville. And that's not what we were about.
The Monkees, it seemed, had finally reached the end of the line. But fans wanted more, and Rhino Records responded.
They're duplicating what was already a success because there's a new generation coming along, but they're not upgrading our share of it. We're still working on 1966 prices here.
Rhino Records sells the entire collection of the Monkees' music and episodes of the TV show.
It's, I think, like 56 episodes plus head. That sells for $400. Well, if you do your math on 3,000 sets at $400 each, we're talking quite a lot of money.
In 1990, Mike negotiated a joint venture with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. PBS and Pacific Arts formed PBS Home Video to mass-market PBS-produced programs. But the production and sales strategies were ill-conceived and poorly executed.
When this deal was finalized between Michael and PBS, he thought they would just put out videos sporadically. But they were churning out videos at an erratic pace. And the company couldn't afford to do that. And then when it was time to pay royalties, he had no money. He had tied it all up into the distribution and making of the videos.
The entire venture became a house of cards. And by late 1993, lawsuits were flying in all directions.
Pacific Arts had to be shut down, and all these producers filed a lawsuit against Michael. Michael, in turn, countersued, saying, you people put me up against the wall. I couldn't pay because y'all demanded all these videos to be released.
Nesmith faced a legal morass that went on for several years. Meanwhile, in September of 1996, Nesmith and the other Monkees, Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, and Peter Tork, reunited one more time. They recorded an album in celebration of their 30th anniversary.
Mike came into the scene again, and we made an album called Justice, Just Us. 4 guys. Nobody else did anything on it except those guys. We sang it, we wrote it, we played it.
One more time, the Monkees, including Mike Nesmith, hit the road.
Wanted the 4 of us to get back together and recreate this magical image that everybody had in their mind from the show of the 4 of us playing. Not to prove that we could play, not to, like, really become a group, but to just kind of recreate this illusion.
In March 1997, the Monkees kicked off their Just Us tour in England. 30 years had passed since their first performance in London.
We sold Wembley Stadium out, 2 concerts. For a group that hasn't had a hit record in over 30 years, I thought that was a pretty good accomplishment.
Following their 14-day tour in England, the Monkees headed for the U.S. But Mike Nesmith dropped out of sight.
We played with him in England, and then he didn't come with us to do the American tour, and we were very disappointed.
We never got a phone call from Mike. He never said he wasn't coming out on the road with us. He just didn't show up for the rehearsals. And I haven't spoken to him since. Neither has Mickey, neither has Peter.
Just Us was once again just Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, and Peter Tork. The Monkees' heyday had come and gone again. Coming up.
I believe the Monkees, as far as a live band or ever performing together, it will never happen again.
Now, the E! True Hollywood Story is on every night at 9. This week, it's Plummet from Primetime. The Monkees.
We beat each other up all the time.
The Bradys.
And he can't come out of the closet.
Batman.
Behind that mask.
Three's Company.
I was lied to my face.
Different Strokes.
And I've spent 9 months of my life in jail.
On screen, they had it all. Off screen, it all went wrong. It's Plummet from Primetime Week on the E! True Hollywood Story. This week, every night at 9, only on E!
After you turn 40, you probably notice your eyes don't focus as well as they used to. Well, now Lens Crafters can help with a new and improved no-line multifocal lens called Maximum View Progressives, or MVPs. Other no-line progressive lenses have a more limited vision area, but new MVPs have a vision area that's up to 20% larger to help you see better. People leave seeing better than they ever thought possible, and I love that. New Maximum View Progressives, only at Lens Crafters, made in about an hour.
There's nothing he can't buy.
I saw him wreck a $100,000 boat.
No one he can't seduce.
Do you want to dance, or do you want to dance?
And no world left to conquer.
Acquisitions and mergers looking a little stodgy.
But Thomas Crown...
How big of a thief are you?
...is about to discover a whole new thrill. Pierce Brosnan, Rene Russo.
Are the laws of the United States completely unknown to you?
The Thomas Crown Affair, rated R, starts Friday.
Can't get enough peanuts? Get a payday. Sweet caramel and tons of salty peanuts.
At Geico, we get the ball rolling on your claim quickly. Even in the middle of the night. Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Mr. Gecko.
This is my final plea. I am a gecko, not to be confused with Geico, which could save you hundreds on car insurance. So stop calling me.
Geico, a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
If you're looking for a DirecTV system, the best place to buy one is Circuit City. We'll help you get exactly the right satellite system for your home. Enjoy over 40 channels for just $19.99 a month with select choice programming from DirecTV. And right now at Circuit City, you'll get a free self-install kit, a $50 value. Or we'll come out and professionally install your new system for just $99. Our knowledgeable sales counselors can answer all your questions. So check out DirecTV today at Circuit City.
It's hard to go for long without Herbal Essences shampoo. It drenches your hair with all natural botanicals and organic herbs. So you just can't help but be noticed. Herbal Essences from Clairol, a totally organic experience. Say no to dandruff and yes to beautiful hair with new Herbal Essences anti-dandruff shampoo.
Back to compressions, 13, 14, no response, go straight to the jokes. Limericks, puns, irony. Try a foreign accent. Can you speak? Can you be breathing? Oh, by the way, did I say no knock-knock jokes?
A new way to look at everything on health.
It's payback time. The power has shifted. The 99 Honda clearance is here. Now you're in control. The 99 Honda clearance. Don't you just love it when you win?
This portion of E! is brought to you by Honda, a winning lineup of fine quality automobiles, motorcycles, and power equipment.
This is my...
People just can't get along, and I encourage that.
Welcome to Versus, the game show that pits two rival teams against each other in intellectual combat.
Can't hear you. Want a piece of me?
Versus, weekdays at 5, only on Comedy Central.
Families everywhere have discovered the real power, real comfort, and real style of the new Buicks. Now, during Buick Summer Savings, even more families can move up to Buick. With $3,500 cash back on Park Avenue Ultra, $1,000 cash back on Regal, and $1,500 cash back on Century. A Consumer's Digest Best Buy 2 years running. Raise your sights and move up to Buick. Now, during Buick Summer Savings.
In 1986, the Monkees' 20th anniversary tour was the highest-grossing concert series of that year. The highlight was the appearance of Mike Nesmith. A decade later, the Monkees reunited again for their 30th reunion, commemorating it with an album. In March 1997, the group went on tour and sold out Wembley Stadium in England. But Mike Nesmith left the tour abruptly, causing a huge, irreparable rift. By 1997, the Monkees were all in their 50s, no longer the zany kids who upstaged the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. After Mike Nesmith split for the last time during the 1997 tour, Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, and Peter Tork continued to perform as a trio, but by year's end, they too called it quits.
I believe the Monkees, as far as a live band or ever performing together, it will never happen again.
Whatever the future holds, the Monkees have proved time and again that they are survivors. Davy Jones is still on the fast track. This time he's a registered jockey riding thoroughbred horses.
When I rode in a race in England, came out of that gate, when that gap opened up, we slid down the rail and we won by 5 or 6 lengths.
Davy Jones have sprinted well clear, 4 of spades in pursuit. Doesn't look like getting there, but is flying as they go to the last half furlong. And Dick Past is going to hold on all right for Davy Jones. 4 of spades.
I fulfilled that dream, but I do believe that if I'd have pursued it, that I would have been a world-class jockey. I don't regret having been in the Monkees or been in show business, but I wish it had gone the other way, because I'm a very private person who's become a very public person, which is a very large contradiction to who I am. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, but I can assure you there'll be no more Monkees for me.
Following the Monkees' 30th reunion tour, Mickey Dolenz went back behind the camera in Los Angeles. Dolenz is a television director, working on projects that include ABC's Boy Meets World.
It's what I do best. I've done it longer than anything else. You know, if you added it all up, the whole Monkee experience is only a few years of actual, time. But all in all, the Monkee thing, definitely is a positive. It's definitely, at the end of the day, you balance all of it. And in my case, certainly, it's been a big positive.
Peter Tork was a musician when he joined the Monkees in 1965, and music remains his first love. Tork and some friends formed a band called the Shoe Suede Blues. The group can be found playing clubs in Los Angeles.
Blues is so much fun, It's an amazing thing. Everybody thinks the blues is about how bad things are, but it really is about how wonderful it is to know how bad things are.
Like Mickey Dolenz and Davy Jones, Peter Tork has no regrets about his wild and often crazy times with the Monkees.
We were a pop phenomenon that were a TV show and made records, but that's not going to be how we're remembered. We're just going to be remembered for, wild and crazy stunts and being somebody in particular. That's the thing about it, how many groups do you know that you know who each one of the people was?
Mike Nesmith, the most detached and the most entrepreneurial member of the Monkees, turned from music to writing. In January 1999, Nesmith's first novel, The Long Sandy Hair of Neptune Zamora, was published. Mike hit the road to promote the book while starting work on his second novel. Then in February, After a long and bitter legal battle with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the jury returned a verdict in Mike's favor. PBS was found liable for breach of contract in its dealings with Nesmith's video production company, Pacific Arts. Nesmith was awarded almost $47 million in damages. PBS vowed to contest the verdict. Davy Jones, Mickey Dolenz, Peter Tork, and Mike Nesmith were part of a unique experiment that exploded into a pop culture phenomenon. As musicians, the Monkees proved they could be innovators as well as entertainers. As entertainers, they laughed at themselves and the world laughed along. In the process, the Monkees made a believer of just about everyone.